Welcome to another TerranScapes video. This video is to showcase 4 new river sections that I'm adding to the river lineup. And actually these are 4 replacements for existing pieces, mostly because the existing molds are deteriorated to the point where I can no longer cast them. Although I do have some of these pieces still in stock, so it'll be a temporary boost in the overall selection of pieces you can purchase from the site. So first, taking a look at them, one of the new sections is a new river ford, and the new river ford features enhanced rocks that are a little bit nicer than the previous set, and I'll show you a close-up of those in a second. It includes a new river bend, which forms a true 90-degree bend. The old river bend that I did was just about, it was 90 degree, but you can see the new one is quite a bit larger. There we go. And features, I think, a more realistic bend. It has a little bit more of a swoop. And then another new piece is a river bend that forms a 45-degree angle. The previous one that I had for this has a little island in the middle and didn't form an exact 45-degree, and I figured it'd be nice to standardize the angle change so that it'd be easier to lay out something that might meet flush with the table edge. And then the last additional section is a new straight section. This is a new piece, and this is a full 12-inch long section, so that, I'll give you a little tape measurement here. So that's a full 12 inches, which is quite a bit longer than the previous long section, which was a 9-inch section, and also allowed me an opportunity to make a section that was a little bit wider, which reflects a little bit more, scale size wise, a more natural looking river for models using 28mm scale or 30mm, which is common for a lot of wargaming systems. Let me show you a close-up of the river ford, and we can talk a little bit more about that.
So here you can see the new rocks. What I did is I mounted some cast rocks into the master so that I could cast from that. And it gives it a more realistic detail in each of the rocks, and added in some shallows around them, which leaving some open areas so that I could paint them in. The rocks are a really big improvement over the old ones because they have some of that texture, and they sit up a little bit higher over the base. So you can see here in the original has a much tighter cluster of rocks, and the rocks are all contiguous, so it doesn't really allow for me to have the feel of water flowing through it as easily. And the rocks themselves, they don't really have the surface texture that the other rocks have. So these new rocks really impart a much more of a three-dimensional feel. And when you sit them down, when you set it on its side and you look at it from a model's eye view, you can see them jutting up a little bit more. But one of the nice things is that they don't go high enough that they're going to tip a really heavy model. So a metal miniature like this can sit on them without tipping, and you don't have to worry about that as you're moving maybe Terminators or something, older metal models across. I did also widen the river ford a little bit to give it that broader feel, and I actually thin the profile of the edges right next to the ford so that it helps to convey that idea that you're actually going to be coming across it at a thinner spot, a more easily accessible point. And I think overall it conveys the ford a lot more realistically. On top of that, the old ford was about 3 to 3.5 inches wide, really, where the rocks imply. And in the new one, it's coming across at about, 4 to 5 inches, depending on how you perceive it. So it just gives a little bit more of a realistic crossing area for larger groups of models to come across, such as ranked up infantry. In this close-up shot, I wanted to point out some of the foliage and give you a sense of what that looks like up close. Of course, on all the pieces, almost all of them, I think, I've added in some rocks along the shoreline to give it a little visual interest, and added in a bunch of different vegetation, reeds and brush and other kinds of vegetation along the edge. And I've been gravitating towards adding more and more over time. So some of the older photos are a little bit out of date now, and this gives you a better sense of what some current pieces coming out of production are looking like. And I think when you look at it, especially from a model's eye view, really looking edge on the river, you get that real sense that it's a densely vegetated riverbank that has quite a bit of realism. The surface is a mirror finish made with Envirotex, and it's pretty scratch resistant, and it's pretty resistant to abuse. But you know, it does require a moderate amount of care. But if it does get dusty, you can always remove the dust with a soft cloth. But I tend to store them away from dust to try to prevent that, because as you try to dust it, you may get some little buff marks in it, and they're fine. And I always brush it with the flow of water so that it helps to impart that overall.
And of course, you know, the new pieces like this long straight, you know, match and butt up to all the previous thin sections. And if you haven't been to TerranScapes website before, you'll also see there that I have some other sections that are 4-inch widths of water, which with some transition pieces that will match up to these thinner pieces. So it gives you quite a bit of flexibility in your layout. And these straights, these slightly smaller straights, are going to be continued as I remastered the molds for these a little while ago with improved rubber. So these are going to be in production for quite some time. And while I'm at it, you know, I should also mention that a lot of people. Wait a minute, let me get this over here. We go. A lot of people have been purchasing lately, and I suspect it's a little bit due to the economy, have been purchasing the unfinished pieces and opting to finish them themselves. And I wanted to take an opportunity just to mention that when you receive your unfinished pieces, you know, they're just the raw cast. They come right out of the mold like this. You know, they require, you can see here, there's a little bit of flash along the edge, so it requires a little bit of trimming. And I recommend that you wash them, although I found that sometimes washing is necessary if you use a very good quality automotive primer. But I've been changing some of the materials that I use to cast these, and in particular what I've been doing is I've been dropping the addition of the tint. I tint this to come out gray. So currently the newer molds are coming out untinted, which is this white plastic resin. It is a resin. It's not the same resin that, say, Forge World uses, but it is a 2-part epoxy plastic resin. And so you're going to get it in this color most likely, or perhaps you might get a mix, because I have some older pieces that are cast with the gray, some pieces that are cast with the white. When you paint them up, they're going to look identical, especially if you coat them evenly with a primer. But I just wanted to point out that because I'm always experimenting with materials and changing up some of the techniques that I use and testing out new things, you may get some slight variations in the appearance of materials over time. And here, which is something I haven't actually done before, just to give you the side-by-side comparison of the finished piece and the unfinished piece, so you can see you know, what you might be willing to undertake if you're interested in purchasing these. I'm actually going to keep the unfinished set at the same price that I have it at, and I'm going to add an extra piece to it to make it a little bit of an even better bargain. And I think I can afford to do that and try to keep you know, putting rivers in the hands of customers, especially with the new Warhammer Fantasy rules coming out, which sounds like there may be some changes in the way river terrain, or all terrain I should say, is going to be handled. This might be a prime time to add rivers to your set, because they're just so dramatic on the table. And I think, you know, as a Warhammer Fantasy player myself, you know, one of the detriments to having a river on the table is it just creates this impenetrable barrier that blocks off so much of the table. So, you know, with the ability to perhaps move through terrain a little bit more easily, it gives you that added incentive to add a really eye-catching piece to the table that can, you know, shepherd movement and really create some tactical variations in your games. Anyway, if you want to see close-up photos of any of these pieces, you can always go to TerranScapes.com, and there I have photos of all of these pieces, plus the larger 4-inch river sections. There's an end cap that goes with this set, and if you see the set and you like it, but you're thinking that there's some piece that's missing, something that would add a lot to you as a gamer or for your gaming system, don't hesitate to ask, because of course, oh, here, I'm always willing to adjust the set, add pieces, develop new pieces on customer request, and that's always a driver for the development of new pieces for TerranScapes in general. So I always encourage your feedback. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I look forward to talking to you in the next one.